Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Maine Take. My name is Dana Connors. I am pleased to be the host of this twice a month program brought to you by the Maine State Chamber of Commerce. And by now, you know that in each program, we attempt with our guests to look at some of the issues, ideas, initiatives at work in our state. All of those intended to help grow our economy, to help with the lives and the livelihood of Maine people. And today is no exception. We are very grateful to have with us the Executive Director of the Maine Port Authority, Matt Burns. And Matt, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you, Dana. Thanks very much for inviting me on.
Oh, the pleasure is ours. And I'm looking forward to having you share with our audience an exciting project that is very crucial to the port opportunities in the Port of Portland, and we're going to get on to that. But first, I want them to know a little bit about yourself.
Sure.
Is that you are a graduate of the Maine Maritime Academy. You are also a U.S. Coast Guard licensed mariner. You have been on ships around the world. In fact, I would say water-related is pretty much a part of your story.
That's right.
I'm aware, I believe it was in the late, probably around 2017, you became Director of Ports and Marine for the Department of Transportation, became interim Director of the Maine Port Authority, and then in May of this year, you served in that capacity for about a year, and in May of this year, you became Executive Director. And boy, nothing has stopped since you have assumed that position. And that's the subject of today's program. We really want to take a look at this latest development, the very project that about 2-3 weeks ago, I had the opportunity, along with a lot of other people, to come together and to talk about a recent development that's been in the works for a while, that looks at the port, our container port, an expansion really of the International Marine Terminal there in Portland, an exciting promise for our future. And I guess I'd also say that I'm familiar, having served in the Department of Transportation, as to how vital it was when Maine in the late 70s, early 80s looked at our 3,500-mile coastline and said, we want to protect that resource because it's so special to the state. But at the same time, we want to be able to take advantage of what ports would bring to our state, to our economy, and to businesses. It's a world economy today, and we want to be a part of it. And so that 3-port strategy was developed at that time that recognized Portland, Searsport, and Eastport as those places for which ports would be placed, and we'd take the advantage of being able to ship our products throughout the world. So with that, with your background, talk a bit about, I touched upon it, but barely touched upon it, the role, the responsibilities of the Maine Port Authority that you now are the Executive Director of.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Dana. So, the Maine Port Authority, has been around for several decades now, but really, just since about 2010, a little bit earlier, the Maine Port Authority really started becoming, prominent on the Portland waterfront, with the redevelopment of the International Marine Terminal, and that's kind of been our or one of our main projects that we focused on really over the last decade. And that really pretty perfectly defines the Maine Port Authority's mission. And, our mission in the state of Maine is to develop port and intermodal facilities, to benefit Maine businesses, particularly shippers in the state that want to see their products go to international markets and move more efficiently to domestic markets. We can help by developing infrastructure, making investments with state and federal dollars to help, develop these projects and help, make our ports modern and efficient so that we can move freight, by water. I would say kind of the subset of that mission is we aim to take trucks off the road, and that's a big part of what we do. We like to see freight in Maine move by sea, by rail, by truck too, of course, but anywhere we can utilize our ports, I see that as a great benefit to the state, because our ports really are quite versatile and can do a wide variety different things. So we're very fortunate in that regard.
Yeah, yeah. Let me ask a general question in this respect. We do have a three-port strategy, and I know that you have put forward a very ambitious plan to make improvements so each of those three ports can grow. And my instincts tell me that for each of the ports, there is a market success story to be told. Is that true, or is that purely instinct on my part?
I think every one of our ports, has kind of a special niche that's been kind of developed, and hopefully capitalized on over the years. Obviously, for a long time in Portland, Portland was a major oil terminal, or had significant amount of oil terminals that were very active. That has declined significantly over the years. So the Maine Port Authority has try to focus on finding new types of businesses that can come in and move freight by sea. So obviously AIM-SCIP and the International Marine Terminal is but one story. Passenger ships have become pretty prominent in Maine. So the state's made investments in passenger terminal infrastructure there, which I think is a great thing for the state. Searsport obviously does a wide variety of things, but one of the big successes that we've had, or that Sprague has had in Searsport, has been moving a lot of project cargo, namely wind turbine components, which have supplied a lot of the terrestrial-based wind projects that have occurred in the state of Maine. Eastport obviously has always been an exporter of pulp from the nearby Baileyville mill. That has declined, over the last couple of years, but we're still very hopeful that maintains a core part of their business there. And then working with the Eastport Port Authority to find new things and new commodities that could be shipped through the port, because for instance, Eastport, we've got very deep water there. We've got a crane that was just put up there just a couple months ago. So there's active investments that are happening there to make that port more marketable and find new projects there. So we have had success stories, and we're always continuing to look for new ones as well. So
yeah, I think it's exciting to be able to see the progress and the success and the role they play in serving businesses, because in a global economy, it's hard to gain a place of significance without that water access. That
absolutely,
which the good Lord provided us, and now we're trying to make the best of it. So that's great.
Well, and not just water access, but maintaining that water access too.
Absolutely.
So making sure that the channels are properly maintained, and working with the Army Corps, and all of that is a part of what we do at the Port Authority, and advocating strongly for dredging and just keeping the ports open is very crucial to our success.
And another point that you made early on in the conversation was the relationship to other modes of transportation, how you need that access to get to the port. But that's another interview we'll talk about. I want to get to the actual celebration of a few weeks ago. We know that there's a story to be told of a challenge that the partners, both the private and the public, faced at a very difficult time. But that celebration that brought together all those team members, both from the government levels, but also from the private sector involved, Treadwell, Franklin, Amber Infrastructure, AIM-SCIP, Port Authority, DOT, and so forth. All of those came together, a lot of other people at the state and government levels, to take stock of what the significance of that day was.
Right.
All those listening and viewing us, what was the significance of that celebration? What were we celebrating?
So we were celebrating the culmination of really, almost 5 or 6 years of trying to get this done. And as you kind of pointed out, there were several iterations that we went through, different developers that had a hand in this, unsuccessfully, of course. First was Americold, which seemed very promising, and the facility that they had proposed was of great significance, but it didn't end up panning out, as such things happen. But I think celebrating the fact that we're finally doing this. We're finally bringing this long, kind of delivered promise that the state's made to provide this cold storage facility, and see that it gets done, and really help to bring this new market into the state of Maine. Because as it stands now, Maine has, inadequate amount of cold storage available to shippers in the state. A lot of the shippers are having to find options that are out of state, and having to, have long truck rides just to get their freight to where it needs to be. The fact that we now have that option, or will have that option, right in the Portland area, that's accessible to shippers all throughout the state, is really significant. And this isn't just a small warehouse that is going to serve a few customers here and there, but this is a major facility that will serve potentially hundreds of customers throughout the state. So really, that, I think, is the core of the celebration. The fact that we're finally getting this done, and we've got a really good path and a good partner to do that. It's really important and significant.
So I use that term generously.
Sure. Yeah.
We've gotten the permits, we've overcome obstacles either at the municipal or state level, and we celebrated by shoveling some dirt to the other side. And now
Sure.
are we ready to move into that construction phase that really you start to see the materializing of all of the hard work that went into it up until this point?
We are absolutely 100% ready to get going and start construction, right away. So the Port Authority's been ready for some time. I think, one of my jobs, and one of the things that I'm mostly, I guess primarily concerned about, is managing a major construction effort in the midst of an ongoing container operation that doesn't really shut down. So having to coordinate operations that are kind of ongoing at the terminal that we do every day, with now this whole west side of the terminal really being occupied by construction activity, it's pretty significant, and it's a lot to coordinate. And the number one thing that we always want to make sure that we're emphasizing is safety, obviously, but efficiency in production. We don't ever want delays to happen that we can prevent. So making sure that things are running smoothly, and that's all kind of running like clockwork is a big part of the next step there, and probably the most important. So we've said that it's going to happen and it's going to get done, and we've made this announcement. Now we've really got to put our money where our mouth is and make sure that everything goes smoothly right up until the day that the facility opens. That's a big part of my job.
And assuming everything does go smoothly, what is the target date for operation?
So right now we're anticipating a February of 2024 open for business date. So customers will be able to use the facility by that date.
Oh, that's great. Knowing, because you kind of touched upon it, I think it was in 2020 you received a grant, which Senator Collins was instrumental in helping to secure.
Correct.
For the Port Authority, that looked at intermodal improvements. I'm assuming that the cold storage facility was part of that, but whether it was or wasn't, what else was included as an intended plan? So we can talk a bit about the future.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, that grant application that was submitted by the Port Authority in 2020 actually didn't include any funding for the cold storage at all. Wow. So that really was the first step in this kind of process of thinking about what the future of the terminal is. So obviously one of the greatest things that, or the most valuable things, at least to the Port Authority when I'm in marine terminal operations mode, is just purely space. We're always hungry for additional space and lay down areas to expand our operation, and be able to place containers and have a place for them to stay on site until they're ready to leave the terminal. That is something that is very finite, especially on the waterfront of Portland. And if you look at where the cold storage is going, it kind of really is ending up in the last available space that we have at the terminal to expand. So now we need to be thinking about what comes next. And in 2020, the Port Authority started, scoping that, I guess, so to speak, and thinking about what kind of efficiencies exist between the International Marine Terminal and then the nearby terminal down the street in Cassidy Point Road, the Merrill's Marine Terminal, which is owned and operated by Sprague. So Sprague and the Port Authority got together to start scoping out some work that would involve improvements made to the Merrill's Terminal and then also to the International Marine Terminal. So everything from front gate work to increase efficiency there and gate access for the trucks, to warehouse work and expansion to make those facilities operate more efficiently. And then really the I guess main point of it was linking those two terminals. And the way that we plan to do that is actually to construct a haul road between both the terminals that runs along the railroad right away there that the state owns. And by doing that, we'll be able to have container access or truck access between both terminals. And that fits in well with AIMSKIP's current plans, which is leasing some warehousing space down at the Merrill's Terminal. So like I said, we're starting to think about that next phase and where we're going to expand to. And that really is the most logical place. And, of course, we have excellent partners with Sprague. And as I mentioned, some leasing that's happening by AIMSKIP. So it's all kind of starting to come together. And that grant really was the first step in that process. So,
well, that's remarkable. I mean, I commend you and the authority for the vision that you've taken on a very relatively small area and to make the most of it and to coordinate it with other interests in the location and do it so seamlessly is a credit to you and the authority. I commend you for it. And speaking of AIMSKIP, I mean, they came to our state, what was it, 2013?
Correct.
And it seems to me to be an amazing partner that we've established a relationship with. And I'm sure if you looked at their growth in terms of activity at the port, it'd be pretty remarkable. Do you know offhand what their presence has meant to our economy, to our state, and for our businesses?
Yeah, Dana, as far as actual, like economic impact numbers, I don't have those handy. But I could tell you that, a couple interesting figures. So AIMSKIP has grown nearly 20% year over year since 2013 when they first started their service. We've really kind of kicked things into high gear in 2018 when AIMSKIP announced, of course, that service would now be weekly at the terminal. So we now have a ship every week that's arriving at the IMT on the AIMSKIP transatlantic line, which is very significant. So with that 20% growth we've experienced every year, we've actually done a little bit better than that every year since 2018. And as a matter of fact, we grew almost 40% last year just in container volume coming through the terminal itself. So the growth has really been remarkable. And another interesting thing to kind of point out is we were always very imbalanced between imports and exports, just really until the last couple of years when the exports really started to catch up. And what that tells me is that it's not just about freight coming in from Iceland into the United States or from Europe, but really it's Maine shippers that are starting to take notice of this reliable weekly service that we now have and expanding their market over to Europe. And that export that's starting to catch up now is I think, I think it's demonstrative of that. And it shows that, we're now having a lot of freight that's actually coming out of the terminal, out of Maine, and going into these new markets in Europe. And that's a really exciting thing. So.
Yeah, as judicious as you've been in making sure that whatever you did served the industry, but also was compatible with the community itself, do you worry that you're going to run out of space there or that you're going to hit the wall when it comes to what appears to be a very exciting future
of
what you've done?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I absolutely worry about running out of space, but I'm also cognizant of the fact that we can't oversell what we have at the IMT. We know that we're probably never going to have 20,000 TEU container ships that come in there. It's just not it's not a great fit for the Port of Portland. So what can we do? Well, we can try and bring an appropriate size vessel and so maybe it's a vessel that's maybe 2 times the size of the current AIM-skip ships that are coming in. So thinking about what's needed to support that, and then trying to build towards that in our 5, 10, 15-year plan in the future, I think is really what we're interested in doing. So not necessarily overselling or overpromising what we could potentially get at the IMT, but trying to ground that a little bit and come up with a more realistic expectation about, okay, so what's the Portland max size that we could bring in, and then trying to design and engineer a solution towards that. That I think is the way to go about it. So we know that we could appropriately support some kind of a feeder service or small liner service, but really anything bigger than that, and we might have to start thinking outside of the box, or maybe starting to understand the limitations of what we have in Portland and at the IMT.
Yeah, I hope that people that have the opportunity to watch this program and to listen to what you shared with us today will really be as encouraged as I am about the potential that you are presenting for Maine's economy, for the businesses, and how wise that vision has been to both accommodate the community that we know, but also the industry that we want to serve. I think it's masterful work, and I commend you for your leadership, your vision, and what you have been able to accomplish. My congratulations, my hats off to you and what you've done. I hope that the public comes to know and understand the potential that you are building for the state and the state's economy. So, Matt, I can't thank you enough for being on the program today and for sharing this information, because it is so encouraging.
I really appreciate that, Dana. Thank you very much. And I appreciate all the kind words. And I guess just my closing comment would be that, Maine has excellent ports that are well built and, well set up, and we're open for business. So we're very happy to talk to anybody who's interested in shipping goods through the state by sea. It's a vital part of what we do in Maine, and just something that's very important to our organization. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to come here and talk about it a little bit.
The opportunity is ours, and we're grateful to be able to share this story because it has such meaning and such promise for our state. So once again, thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care. In the takeaway portion today, as I reflect on what Matt has shared with us, I am reminded, believe it or not, of the words that came out of a sitcom that was probably 40 years ago that I used to watch religiously with my 2 boys. And the sitcom was called The A-Team. And in each episode, it was only a half hour, but believe it or not, there was a team of several people that came together, faced incredible obstacles, major challenges, but somehow in that half-hour period, at the very close, the captain would say, "I love it when a plan comes together." Well, for me, that is the takeaway of this program, because this program clearly reinforced the fact that there has been a plan. There continues to be a plan for the Port of Portland, and it's an exciting one. And we know that with this latest project, a team did come together who faced major obstacles and was able to overcome it. And we know, just like in the A-Team episode, that progress, success was enjoyed as a result of that plan and working together as a team. Like I said, that is in essence the very message that we share with you today. And think about that. Yes, it's taken, what did Matt say, 5 years in the planning stage, in which they had to change parties, they had to overcome major issues, both at the local level, but the state level. But you know what? In that process, that team did not give up. They did not give in. And as a result of it, a couple of weeks ago, we came together to celebrate both the progress of the past, the challenge that we faced, and to recognize that we're at a pivotal point and the promise, what was going to happen in the next year and a few months beyond, early 2024. And I give a lot of credit to that team because it was both private and it was public. It was the state government, it was the local government working together. It was the private sector, Treadwell, Franklin, Amber Infrastructure, AMSCIP, the Port Authority, the Department of Transportation, on and on. They never gave up, they never gave in. Through thick and thin, they stayed together and they worked it through. Marvelous story. Was it, and you also have to consider, as I think about it, in that time, not only did they face the normal challenges, but we're in the midst of a pandemic. Think about how inflation has changed everything. And with inflation has come the concern of maybe there's a recession in the makings, supply chain issues, the war in Ukraine, all of that and more had an impact on the project in the planning stages. But again, I repeat myself, but it's worth repeating. They overcame those obstacles. They kept the focus where it needed to be, and we celebrated that just a few weeks ago. And the promise of the future is extremely exciting because we will have a cold storage warehouse facility right here in Maine, and businesses will not have to ship to Massachusetts or other places. It saves them money, it saves them time. That's a remarkable thing. And it all came about because of a plan and because of a team working. And does it represent progress? Yeah. In a word, yes. In two words, absolutely yes. Because you see, as you think of the ports today, all three of the ports, but today's attention is on the Port of Portland, is that ports are the economic gateway to the world. It gives businesses a chance to ship their products so that others appreciate what we're able to do right here in Maine. And like I said, this cold storage facility gives us a unique advantage that fits very well into the development growth plans that you just heard about. A vision that is extremely important to fulfilling the promise that this port has. All of that represents really the next chapter in the growth, development, and the success of this port that serves our businesses, our state, and is the underpinning of a strong economy. So I thank Matt, I thank the Port Authority, and yes, we celebrated a few weeks ago, but it was worth celebrating. And the old message that we like to say is that when you come together, it's the beginning, and when you stay together, it's progress. But when you work together, you're going to achieve success. And the captain of the A team said it best. I love it when a plan comes together, and you have just been witness to a plan that has come together, and it's reason to celebrate. Not only what was done, but what lies ahead. That is the takeaway for this week. And as always, we close with this thought. In a world where you can be anything, be kind to yourself, but also be kind to one another. We'll see you right back here in a couple of weeks. Until then, enjoy the September that we're about to begin. Take care. Bye-bye.